what we're going to be doing today is a continuation of my personal project. For anyone who isn't familiar with it, who hasn't joined the stream before, um, essentially I'm doing a parkour-inspired action shot. It's one shot, and it's about a minute long, and it's all kind of within homage of some of my favorite 90s animes. Anime movies, mostly Ghost in the Shell and Akira. Up to this point, we have mostly just been doing the timing and staging of the shots because it's a very complex shot and it will take a lot of planning. The thing that gives this shot maybe a little bit of an edge, or at least for me, something that I haven't done before, is animating directly to sound. So my actions have to synchronize with the rhythm of the music. And that's kind of where this all stimulated from. So that's pretty exciting. At least for me, it's something that I've always wanted to do. I've planned on doing a shot like this for maybe 3 or 4 years and had variations of the idea of how I wanted to approach it. But recently I got into a certain type of music which I thought would be quite fun to animate to, because there's like some flexibility to play around with rhythm, but also like has a variation that builds up over time. So I've found some royalty-free music, and then I've like edited it slightly to give it that build-up that I was looking for. And I think it kind of goes well with the like 90s anime aesthetic, so it should be really fun. The bit that we're doing today is we've pretty much, up to this stage, we had a very rough pass of our layout that was done with camera and the staging of where the character was going to be positioned throughout the shot. Then we went through and we refined the timing of things, we gathered some reference, we edited the reference, retimed the reference. And now we're at the stage where the character and the staging is at a point where I want it to be. Hey Seth, how's it going, dude? For anyone who doesn't know, I actually teach staff at the moment at Animation Mentors, so that's really cool to see you here. But yeah, so what we're going to be doing today is resynchronizing the camera, just retiming it slightly so that it ties a little bit more into the action of the character now that I figured out where I want the character to be at each certain time. There are going to be there were some ideas that kind of evolved since I initially did the camera pass, and so I want to reshoot those, just restage the camera so that we get a framing that kind of communicates the narrative a little bit better now, as well as just follows the character because it's been retimed. And then we're going to go through and start doing thumbnailing, which I'll just be doing in Photoshop. And I'll just be like doodling poses at key stages of the action and trying to get those really solid poses as much as I can. And that'll probably be an exploration. I'm not the best draftsman ever, so like you'll probably have to apologize. I apologize in advance for probably where some people might see that I'm making mistakes or could be improving on my drawing. Like this is where it's like an exploration, right? So feel free to also like have your 2 cents if you think something could be more here, more there. It's very much a like iterative process, so should be interesting. But yeah, otherwise, what I'll do is I'll play the project at its current stage, and you'll notice that the camera isn't quite tied together yet. So that's what we'll be mostly addressing now. Cool. So what I'll do is I'll play the clip, and then we'll go from there. yeah, so that's the broad sense of the shot right now. As you can tell, it's still pretty rough. Um, we're mostly just going through and getting that timing down as concrete as we can. There is some flexibility later, but because the action is so synchronized and like coherent with the camera, the earlier I can make and establish that the feeling of the shot at its like broad sense earlier, the better it will be, and the less destructive it could be later if I want to make changes. So whenever I'm doing this stuff, I do have a very clear vision in my head of how I'd like it to be, and sometimes there are things you don't expect, which that's where the iteration comes in. So yeah, we'll see how it works when I address the camera, and then we'll see if it feels right, and then from there we will start doing some thumbnailing. I mean, I can do thumbnailing now because I know what poses I want to hit, but I want to make sure that I get the camera tied down before, at least to a degree, before we go any further. So yeah, I've got my shot here. At this stage, we don't actually really need to hear the sound, so also I can just turn off the audio there because I think that's going to be a little bit distracting as I'm scrubbing. So another thing that's interesting about this is, first of all, I'm going to bring, let's just do a 2-panel so I can see the camera and the perspective. That's a very intricate scene here. This is just one building. There are about 7 of them in the entire thing. So we've got the camera here. Now, one thing that's interesting about this is I have this thing where at the very beginning you can see there's like this overhead projector and it reveals around, but there's something about it which when we get to this stage around here and we're coming down and then doing this flip and land, I think this staging here, the general idea of where I want it to be placed, is feeling pretty good to me. My only concern is there's so much complexity that we're crossing over right now, where we're looking. Ideally, I want to frame the character from left to right, but having this piping here and the sniper here, and then running off to the right, there's so much complexity that we're not seeing right now. Like, there's so much intricacy and overstimulation kind of all at once, and it's really hard to see what's happening behind all of that. So this is the only part that I've really been second guessing in terms of clarity, is like, I need to restage this in a way where by the time I get to here and we dive down, I want to preserve this, but I need to rejuggle the environment slightly to make it read a little clearer. So there are a couple of ways we could approach this. First of all, I was considering maybe this piping. We can already take away some of that by maybe flipping it and just seeing if we just put it on the other side and it's attached to this piping. I know this is like a modeling thing, but the earlier I get, this is obviously determining part of the staging where the cameras can be positioned. So I want to see how much I can get away with. I'll obviously connect all this stuff later in Polish, but I want to see if I can maybe extend some of this. Oops, that was the wrong thing. So let's just go in here, and I want to extend it slightly. Let's isolate that stuff because it's getting on my nerves. I want to see if I can just move this out. And then if I also select this stuff here, oops, not that stuff. We don't want any of that. Oh my god. Right. I just want to reposition this so that we can connect it a little bit more. There we go. And if I just turn on soft select. I know this isn't a very exciting part. Is that gonna, yeah, it's gonna move everything. Let's turn that influence down. There we go. I just want to shrink it back just so that we can get a little closer in here. Need to make sure I get that soft selection working well. Is that going to move everything now? It's a little better. Need a little bit more. That's better. Right. So now I can move this back into this position. I'll clean it up later. But now as I cross over, does that help anything? We're coming through, we come over, and then he does this flip. There's still a lot of the action. The only thing I could think of is if I were to take this whole section and slightly raise it so that when we get to this stage here, all of this piping and this stuff is actually out of the way. I think that's plausible. It's a bit of reworking the environment again, but I think I could do that because we don't really see anything above here. So like, I could probably take a lot of this stuff and all of this. Aha. Okay, so we'll keep that for now. This is going to be in... Yeah. It's going to be a little bit of a rework to get this stuff to connect. But I think it'll be worth it. Again, it's just the nature of when you've got such a vast environment. Sometimes this happens. Oh, we've got all these little bits in here. Let's just do this. I want to see that I'm not selecting anything at the back. No, that's okay, that's good. If you have any questions, anyway, at any point, guys, like, also feel free to just fire away. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to this. Just in case you're curious about something. So I'm going to try... There's also a little plane there. I'll move it. I don't think I need it. I'm just going to shift this a little higher up here, and which means we're going to drop down that first fall. We're going to drop down a little higher. So there is all these bits in here that I also will probably need to move so that it's just not in the way. Center pivot. Where is that? There you are. Let's move that up as well. I'm going to have to move all of this stuff. Oh, there's so much. We don't see a lot of it anyway, but we might be, because we're tilting up, I just want to make sure. Right. We'll shift that up as well. We're not going to see any of it, so as long as it's hidden, I think it's not going to be a problem having that there. Right, so now we have this section here. Now, what I was going to do is take some of this. Let's do this, this. And I want to take some of this piping, and I want to lower it. Let's turn off the soft select. Drop this down a bit. So now, in here, when we land later, and we do our little jump here, we can still land at this stage on this pole. But now we have a little bit more clearance. So when we can see here, now you see as we're jumping and we do this flip here, we don't have that room. We no longer have that space in our way, like that piping. So that's one part that we can eliminate. Another thing that we could maybe consider is maybe I want to shift this section up a bit more to the left so that when we come across, we have a bit more of a fall to the right. And this is going to change our camera. It's going to change where we've animated the position of the sniper and everything. But again, we can actually use the graph editor to our favor with some of that stuff. I'm just going to shift this over to the left a little higher. So we're a bit more confined into this space now. I can take these and I can probably, again, soft select them. I can probably group this stuff, actually. I can separate it later if I need to. So I'm just going to combine this geometry. Combine. Then I can select the verts and then soft select them. Thank you for the follow. Just shift this over. Where's my pivot gone? Again, I can fix some of this stuff, like polish it later, all the modeling stuff. I want to get rid of that panel. Make sure I'm saving as I'm going through. But now, when we come through here and we drop, we may have a little bit more of a fall, but it also means that I've got a little bit more space. So in here, what I need to do is I need to get the translation X of our character, which is, that's our forward and back, so it's our Z, in here. And everything up to here, where he lands, we need to scale this up. So I'm going to use Animbot. Just turn it on. So scale to the right. So I'm just going to scale away from this. So we're going to be shifting everything over here a little bit more through this section. And then we also need to be going a little higher in here. You can see the massive descend throughout the entire shot. That's really cool that you're, first time with us. So nice to have you here, man. So we're here. So everything from this point, again, I want to scale up. So we're just going to scale this to the right. So we're a little higher. And then need to also shift the Z a little bit here. There we go. So now we're in this position. We're coming through. We're dropping here. And then we're coming through and down. It's a little shift. Slight apex. Come through. Drop here. Then land. Okay. So now we've got that position resolved, and there's the little flip that happens through there. Now, with the sniper, I also need to raise that. I don't have any controls for the rig right now. I do have a group, so I'll just raise this. And then shift it over. And then, again, I want to take these verts. Oops. Let's turn off. Soft select. Just bring this over a bit more. And then shift that there. Let's just take that edge loop because that's annoying me. Right. So we've got that rough position now. And I also need to go into the camera and then do the same for that. So we're just going to scale things up a little bit. So in here, we get to this point here on the landing. So everything from this point also needs to be scaled up when we come around here. So we're just going to scale this up. And then we also need to shift it back in the Z as well. In here. So all of this, scale it back. So now as we're coming around, we still have this reveal and everything. And then notice now, as we come through and drop, we now have all this space. We have this breathing room. Hey, Tom. So many great people in here. How's it going, dude? I feel like this is going too high, though, in here. Just want to shrink this down. Try and get our staging so a little bit more on the upper left third. and we can see the sniper a little bit more. So just for context, the reason the character, the motivation behind the character, and the reason why they're running and descending is because they've just assassinated someone. This is just like a very subtle context that happens, just so that we have some plausibility. But they've just assassinated someone, you hear sirens going off, and then she starts to descend. And then she's basically trying to sneak her way past all the police that are now scanning the area. There's going to be drones like surveilling and everything. So there, should be pretty fun. Should look pretty cool when it's all done. I want to add some like background characters of like police and that kind of stuff. So now we have this section, right? And we're coming through, and I just want to tweak the camera now as we're going through this shot. So now synchronize a little bit more with what the character's doing. So I might have to retime it as well, but I just want to make sure I get my staging. So as we're coming through here, we're already beginning to drop before the character is, and I think I know that there is a rule in animation where obviously your character is what drives the camera. I think we can do that to a degree where we can feel like it motivates the camera, but also I feel like there's going to be some staging where it's almost like there's going to be a synergy like that happens between the two, where sometimes I want the camera to continue, but it's still tracking behind, and then the character comes past again. So that way it just kind of keeps the rhythm and the momentum going of the shot when the character's a little bit more static and not moving as much, not traversing as far. So as we come through here, I actually want to keep the camera a little higher, and we can drop it down a little lower. I don't mind if it crosses off the frame a little through here, because we want the camera to feel motivated. So I'm going to try to make it feel like as we're coming through here, as we drop down, now the camera is going to catch up. So there's a section in here now where as we're coming down across, there's a very big point in the animation where I want the character to like dive toward the camera and like sweep around. And so I'm going to have to re-block some positions in here. So I'm going to use this as a base, this frame here. And so I want to kind of slightly hold off this area here, where we're still tracking a little higher as we come up. So at this point here, I wonder maybe I'm trying to think, because I don't want this to be too obstructive. So I could... It's a tricky one. There's a tricky balance. Again, I don't even necessarily have to have the piping on the left side there to join. I am curious what happened if we're going to go back to what I just previously did. How can I do this fast? I don't know if inverting it like this... Oh, it doesn't break the normals. Let's just try this. Does this help us? It does. It helps a lot. So I'm just actually going to keep that on that left side here as this comes around. Because now as we come through, we have a little bit... It allows me at this stage here to, again, keep the camera up higher and track the camera down lower. So it feels like the rotation is the thing that we are aiming with that comes through. And then as it drops here, then we're following through on the translation, but tracking behind. So through here, I want to delay the rotation to continue with the character. It's going to be a pretty harsh drop. I'm going to end up adding quite a few keys, I reckon. So So then there's this sweeping motion here. Need to use Twee Machine. I'm going to slightly delay this. And I want the camera to come a little lower and track around more. Because in here, this is where the character is going to come diving past. And he's going to like sweep through. Here. So I want to position the camera in a way where naturally you can see the path the character is taking. Where he kind of sweeps around here. So as we're coming around, at this stage, there's a very specific point here where I want to make sure that I have my camera quite low. We might even cheat some of the forced perspective in here to make it a little bit more... I don't know if I'll cheat the perspective on the focal length. Sorry, I might cheat the perspective using scaling on the rig a little just for the pose, but then actually try and keep the focal length not changing too much, only because I think it could be a bit jarring if you're going to see it pulling in and out of focal length too much. So I'm trying to tie that together more, and we'll just focus on hitting those poses if we want to get any foreshortening in there. So now as we're coming through here, I want to track the character coming around a little bit more. And then he's going to dive around. They're still not quite working for me. He's coming down, coming around. I think in here, we actually need to be more tracking to the right. I can even use a motion path if that helps. So that I can see the overall, like, traversal of the camera. Because now you can see it swooping around here. Coming down, swoops around. Because we want... Whoa, okay, there's some crazy thing going on with the... I want to do it in world space. I think it might be because it's a camera space thing. I want to see what's happening there. If not, I can always just use the regular one. Yeah, it's because it's in camera space. If I do it in relative space, it's going very slowly. Okay. So coming around. We're tracking around here. It's landing. I might end up having the... Wow, it's really slow now. An inbot. Nah, an inbot is good. It saves a lot of time. This is very slow with that motion trail now. So what I'm probably going to do is just use the Maya one. It gets the job done for what I need it to do. So we're coming around. And then swooping through here. And then this position here needs to continue coming through. And blending into this position more. I want to hold it back a little in here. I'll do some cleanup on the curves later. I just want to get the broad staging right now. So coming down. And it swoops around. We are holding down too long here. This is definitely going to take some tweaking. So we're coming... This needs to be slightly wider. Yeah, that's feeling a little better as we come through, around. This definitely needs some cleanup. We're swooping around here, coming through. That's feeling a bit better. Now we just need to track the character a little bit more. Yeah, it definitely feels like we're overtaking too much here. The character needs to jump, there you go, and dive through. It might be worth, just for this stage, actually just splining the staging ball, just so I can see it through space. Yeah. I was doing it like, I was just visualizing it in my head. It actually kind of works, but it's a lot more practical now. I do want to delay the camera slightly here. Just ease it out. Just so that the character, there you go, the character moves first. Coming down, we want to begin to drop and aim. Then come through. I do want him to already be, the ball, to already be traversing more to the right here. If I look in this curve, you can see here, this needs to be coming further across. So we have a push off here, so everything here needs to be easing in to this stage. So now as it's coming through, that feels a bit better. And it's sweeping round and through. I might slightly overshoot it. So he lands, he comes around here. Then he sweeps around. So it's a slightly more continual action. He pushes off, comes through, comes around, and then here the camera also needs to rotate around a little bit more. Following the action, coming through, swoops around, and passes through. I think we might need to be a little lower earlier here. So, on the camera. Because right now it feels like we're not low enough for when the dive happens. Also in here, I think we need to hold it back around a bit more. So then we feel the sweep of it. Like, we want to feel the character dives and sweeps it around. So in here, we're just going to delay this slightly. And then in here, this needs to come in earlier. We need an extra key in here. Still think this needs to be earlier. So in here, this needs to ease in. So we can get rid of this key. Just through here. Just need to feel that sweep. I do want it to feel quite gradual. Hey Luke, how's it going? So it comes around, sweep. Yeah, this needs to be, I think at this stage here, this is now feeling pretty good. But then here we need to ease into this a little earlier. There we go. Yes, that's what I wanted. What have everyone been up to? Anyone had any fun things they've done this weekend? So that's coming through. Jump, fall. In here we need to clean this up a little. It's this part in here. Our translation Y. We're hanging. Oh, that was weird. We're hanging back. We're holding. Then we're coming down. I just want to make this a little bit more gradual. So in here, it's a tricky one. I do want to ease in. I want to make sure the camera's coming and following through. And we need to see the floor before he hits. Otherwise, that's not going to read very clearly. Then he's going to dive around, which means we just need to ease this in a little bit more in here. And then I'll adjust the rotations afterwards. So we're coming down. I like using the graph editor a lot, only because I actually get a better understanding of the spacing through time, rather than having to rely on... I do scrub as well, just to get a feel for things. But at the same time, I think it also does require looking at the graph, and you start to with more time, you do get to kind of get a feel for how the transitions are happening by looking at how the curve is moving. So then it drops here. This needs to continue coming through. Then this needs to ease out more. Coming up. This is going too high now. So we're going to see... I might be able to make this a little bit more dynamic. I think I can make this, the translation of the up and down, faster. So we ease in earlier. So I'm going to create another key here. And then I want to ease this in quite harsh. So that way, in here, we'll feel the switch of the camera taking over more. And it makes it a lot more dynamic as well, which is pretty cool. This needs to happen a little later. So again, I'm just adding keys where I need them to get the extreme working. Something like this. Maybe a little tighter. That feels a bit better. We're kind of staying in that safety gate a little bit more. Then we're coming down around. I think we can delay. There you go. Delay the rotation a little bit more. He comes through, sweeps. I think he's still easing out too early here. So now, this is a tricky one. Something like this. Then we're holding back. In here. The arc of this in here needs to sweep around to the left. Come down more. So we're coming through, sweeping to the left and coming lower. Then we come through and jump. I wonder if there's something weird rotation happening there. Let's just switch up my rotation orders quickly. See if that helps. Yeah, there we go. So now we're coming through. There is part of me. I'm looking, so imagine there's like a glass panel here. That's the idea. The character's going to be sliding along this glass panel. So actually, even though we don't see the floor here, this is where the panel will be of the glass, the position of the character. So sweeps and then comes through. It's landed here. Then jumps off. It feels like we're tilting down too early in here. Oops. Select the camera. In here. I need to hold back. Come down. It feels like we're also pulling to the left too early. In here, there's like a... We need to hold for a moment here. Then we feel the swoop. There we go. Now it's coming through. I think that's working better for me now. I don't mind that we're in this bottom left third with the character by the time we reach here. I might make it so he's slightly further across in here. So if I just blend ease this, he's a little bit more in that left third as he lands here. Because we're occupying space, right? We're using... We're in the left third here. Come down, bottom mid. Then coming round to top right. Up to across top left, down to bottom left, then we continue and sweep over. So we're really occupying the camera space. We're playing with depth. So I think this is working a bit better for me now, this section. This is one of the more complicated areas that I wanted to make sure we tied down. So I'm glad that we got that working a bit better now. Then we're swinging through. So we're coming over. And I think we need to be traversing more in Z faster here. This section here. So we've pushed off, we're accelerating. The camera needs to... Oh, ignore that. Select the camera. In the Z here, we're slowing down too much. And the X. So here, let's just try smoothing it off. Because we're coming through, we're picking up speed. It just feels like it starts to slow down here. Let's just play it. Yeah, it slows down. So I need to look at these curves and see exactly what they're doing. Because it's here, we're coming through. And then this. I want to make sure that I'm on this, that it stays on the right third. But I think we don't need to travel at this stage. We can probably travel a little further across. Because right now we're kind of sticking in that right corner too much. And I want it to be a little bit more centered here. So we're just going to traverse across a little bit more. And then I need to smooth out that curve there. So we're coming through. And then here as well. For some reason, we're still not traversing very far across. So I think in these flips, I'm going to need to... We have this hurdle here. Then we catch and grab. I think I can maybe make the catch happen earlier. So on the staging here, when we get to this stage, I don't think we should be as far forward. And then we split the difference. So I think it's mostly the Z. So it's this going backwards and forwards. The only tricky part of this is we're actually on a diagonal. So it's not one axis. but we're swinging left and right either side of it at the same time. So this is going to be quite tricky. I might be able to use a layer in here to just like bring it back, but preserve everything underneath, just so we retime where positions are at certain times. Yeah, I'm excited to see other character too. Is this the final timing, or will you change the timing when you add the character? So this is ideally the final timing. So like the timing of where the character is at certain points, for the most part, is going to stay this way. Where this ball is, this will be the character, and this is hopefully what the timing should sync to. But the camera just needs repositioning. So yeah, it's going to be pretty dynamic with the jumps. I mean, obviously the spacing is going to change a little bit, but the general positions and the timing of things, it is synced to the music. So in here, I just need to make some small adjustments, really. So I think from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a layer. I want to even out the distribution of the speed at which we're coming through here, because there's sections through this stuff where it feels like we're slowing down too much, but then we were quite fast here. So I just want to split that difference. So if at this point here, let's just make sure that we preserve the coordinates when we get to this stage here. I reckon this swing will be okay. So on that key, now in here, I want to bring this further back along the rail. So now when we come through, we're traversing a little further. It feels a little bit more of an even spread as we're coming across now. I think it was just that initial leap was a little too... So we're coming around, grab. This is going to be fun, I reckon. When I animate this, I can visualize where it's going to go. Ideally, as we leap here, we're going to actually leap slightly more diagonal to the right, catch, and then swing to the left. So it's going to be, again, playing with depth a little bit more. So I will add that in a minute. But I just want to go in here and make sure that these tangents are linear. So now we're coming through and the spacing is continual from one moment to the next. In here, it's just these changes. This all needs to be linear. So now I just need to make sure... I don't like adding keys on a layer when I start to bake things if there's not a key for it already. I think there actually is, which is pretty useful. Wow, that is very useful. I just so happened to pick keys where we already had keys. So now when I merge this... Let's just save it. When I merge this layer, it should just translate those adjustments onto the X and Z, and I wouldn't have had to like adjust it via I through time. That's the thing that I find really tricky, and I teach my students a lot with trying to linearize your timing where your keys are, so that they're like every 2 frames, every 4 frames, because when you track your spacing, it's a lot easier to understand how many frames there are in between each key, rather than being like, oh yeah, between this key and this key, there's like 8 frames, but then the next key, there's like 24 frames. So then it's really hard to understand how your spacing might be working. So I'd usually try to standardize that, and that's what I struggle with. So with this, obviously this isn't standardized right now. I can look at my keys and I can see they're not every consistently numbered of frames. So it's a lot easier, it's a lot harder to track spacing. So using this layer is just a faster method. So now when I go through, it would have made those adjustments. That's feeling better. So now I can layer in some... I want to make this a little bit more dynamic in here now. So I want to try and layer in some angles. Thank you for the follow. I'll try and layer in some angles to make this a little bit more dynamic. Now, I don't want to make it too dynamic, only because if I'm looking at my reference, which is things like Ghost in the Shell and Akira and those sorts of those specifically, but also like 90s animes in general in those movies, you'll notice that because they're using oil paintings in the background, that a lot of the camera angles they use are very like translational. They don't use rotation too much because obviously it warps perspectives. It changes perspective, and obviously they can't change a perspective on an oil painting. They cheat at something. They teach parallax, right? They use parallax, like slide different paintings to give the sense of depth as things move around. Now, I want to lean into that where I can, just because obviously the angle of the camera enforces the posing of the character. Now, I don't want to make it too. I want to keep it as like translational as I can in one axis, so that it makes it feel like there's one layer of parallax rather than several layers of parallax. There's going to be moments, but like we shift between those moments. But I want to kind of like sit in the similar angle as much as possible. But I also want to tie the animation, like the camera to the animation. So there's like there's a little there's going to be a moment of like trying to blend the two ideas together. So we're coming down here. So I'm going to go through and I'm just going to layer in some rotations into this a little bit. Up to this moment here. So I'm going to create... Do I need a layer? No, I'm not going to start faffing around with layers again because that kind of held us back a bit. So we're coming through. Here, we need to start coming down. We're swinging through. In here, we need to be going lower. I think we can delay this slightly. And then come up later. And then we have the hold here. Coming down. Around here, we can start to go lower. Am I only using... I'm making sure that all my keys are on the same... There they are on the same. Okay, that's good, that's good. I definitely need to reduce some of this. Just to feel like we're tracking a little bit. I might make this come a little higher up in here. I want to kind of suspend in the air for a little while. And then dive down. And then the camera here feels like, again, it's coming... I need to delay this a little bit more. It's better. Come up. Come down. Come up. Did I press the wrong button there? Coming down, coming up. Here. You can delete that. Come up. and coming down, and then again coming up again. And then I kind of want to hold in this area for a little bit longer. So we have like the cameras sweeping too early, really, as we come into here. So I can slow this down. I want to keep the momentum going a little bit. We're traversing down to the right too much here. So on the camera, I need to hold this. I do want to stick a little bit in the left space. I also like the idea of being... I do want us to be a little lower looking up. Again, it gives it that sense of, like, again, the 90s anime. If we're just going down in one axis, then I think it makes it more interesting. So the translation X and Z are going to kind of stay in the same position here. I need to turn on my animbot again. I notice comments aren't vanishing and we're looking so much in the camera. Is there a setting I need to change here? Just give me 1 second. Always show messages. There we go. Sorry about that. I only just noticed. So I want to make sure that we're only going vertically down here. And then as we begin to come through, then the slide happens and comes around. Yeah, I think that feels better. Just for this initial part here. Which also means my rotation Y also needs to be flat here. And our Z. I want to try to keep this a little bit more like coming directly down. We're coming down a little too early here. I do need to... It's a tricky one. I do need to blend things a little bit more. Maybe we actually continue to go a little higher here initially until he drops. So maybe at this stage, by the time we reach here, we're higher and more level. Something like this. Comes down. And then we don't need to come up past high here. I think I can blend the translation Y in a little bit more so it feels more seamless. So I do want to have it, I think up to here is good, but then from this point on, we can actually naturally just blend into it going a little higher. Just so that when we get to this stage, there's a bit more of a smooth transition. Like we don't feel the camera going up so abruptly in translation. And then here again. I will definitely need to refine this once I get more keys in here. There's something about this as well, as we're coming across screen, where we just kind of stop here. And I want to kind of make it feel like that we're always moving. So maybe from here... Oh, that's rotations. Just translations in here. We do come to a stop. So I'm just going to smooth this through. Just so that we're always moving. There we go. Just kind of eases into it a little bit more. Then here, we need an extra key. I want to ease this out a little harsher. Same on rotation. I don't mind having a little bit of lead on the tilt. Coming down here. I think the rotation X can be a little higher. That wire is annoying. It just happens to be there. I might be able to lower the ice cream cone. I think that's what I might do. I'm going to lower the ice cream cone. Just so then, when we drop, we have a bit more of a clear read. So when we get to here, and this, and this, everything is going to move down together. We're going to move this stuff a little bit more. Oops, we're missing an ice cream ball. Ah! That guy. So move this stuff down. Something like this. And then this, because it was animated. Just moving this down. I'll make sure it's on all keys. Now when we drop here and land, I can scale the TYs of this to favor the landing, which is here. So now I'm just going to scale this so that when we land here, on this panel, we're lower to the ground. Scale to the right. Slightly more, come on. There you go. So now when we land and we drop, we land here. There we go. And then we come down here. This also needs to be lower. Because we're sliding along this. We drop, come down, So now let's see. Come down, jump. Yeah, that works better. So now when we come here, the camera can be lower and dropping down, or we can have the camera, like usually I try to keep the camera a little bit more linear on translation. So we're landing at this point here. We need to be as where we're getting at our lowest. Now this is going to ease in, which kind of contradicts what I just said. But we also do need to... It's a tricky one. Maybe we do need to ease in quite a lot. And then I'll just tweak the rotation after. So we're coming down. Here we don't need to tilt up as much anymore. We're keeping it quite flat. So again, it does kind of lend itself a bit more to the more parallaxy anime 90s thing. Coming down. Come up here. I want to delay the tilt slightly. This is tilting way too much right now. Let's just get the rotation X working. Here. And it comes up. Comes down. I want to delay the X here that we hold. Then drop. Go down later. I think I can make this feel more dynamic. I want to get a pose in here for the camera where as we come down onto the chair, this is a really cool moment and I want it to be quite, again, play with depth a little bit more. So I wonder if I can bring it closer. The fencing doesn't help. It's because the bars are there. If I were to shift the barriers slightly, just so that that pole's not completely in the way, it's very inconvenient. Maybe put it in the corner. That's very in the way now. Maybe somewhere like here. Make sure it all joins up in case we need it. So now when we come through, I want to make sure that I have this landing where we're slightly lower. The railing is very annoying. I could go under the railing. That could be quite jarring later though when we vault over it. Maybe I could pull it back slightly more. I think this still reads. This is still pretty cool. I might tweak the camera later to make it so that we don't see the railing as much. But let's use this as a base. So we're coming down. We need to transition to that pose from around here. So we'll look at our translations. We were easing out. Our Z. So we have here. And then we have here. So we need to ease in to this. You can see the path that it's taking. Just trying to blend the transition a little bit in there. See if I can smooth that out a little. So now when it's coming through, let's look at rotation X. Y, sorry. So we want to make sure that we're tracking. Because, yeah, we've got a lot of the tilting going on still here. Maybe we're easing into it too much, too early. We definitely need to be over, I reckon. So it's our X needs to be eased in more for that stage. So that we're coming down, and here we're actually coming over earlier. Yeah, that's better. So now when we track, we're around, we need to be around the other side of the table quite early. So I can always blend these transitions where I need to. Because by the time we get to this stage here, jump, run, all of this, we need to really be earlier. A little bit of tweaking involved in this one. It's a Spider-Man shot, I'm guessing. It's not a Spider-Man shot. It is using a character in the promo that I sent around, which is this character. Completely unrelated to Spider-Man. Don't get me wrong, I love a bit of Spider-Man as much as the next person, but this is something very different. So translation-wise, I want to be lower to the ground earlier here. Yeah, the red and blue doesn't help. I could change that color, to be fair. It could be any color. It was more just so I could understand the rotations. The red and blue wasn't an intentional character choice. So now we're rotating to keep that character in a similar screen space as we transition. Coming around. Oh, this is tricky. Because I need it to hop. I might have to blend some of this transition. Maybe I blend some of this. Because when we come, we're jumping here. Really, by the time we land here, I want to have a clear read. Here, we need to be higher as we leap up. So I need to blend some of this. Something like this. So that we can read the character jumping onto the table, coming up, landing on it, and then stepping down. There we go. Something like this. And then we're coming around in here. There's so many rotations and translations all trying to tie together at once. It is tricky. So we're coming down here. I think we can be a little higher. Drop here. kind of hold it out for a little bit. Then we drop down. Needs to come up higher earlier. Come up. Come down. Then here, need to make sure my TX and TZ are working, because they're not right now. I think those positions are fine. I just need to blend into them more. Here, maybe we need to ease this out slightly. And kind of hold in this area for a bit longer. Because then we're going to vault around. This is going to be the another big swooshy moment. So we're coming down here. This needs to come around. This also needs to come around. I wonder if there's a rotation order I can tweak on my camera, because it's also doing, yeah, because it's doing some funky stuff right now. I need to save this before we go any further too, because we got a lot of changes. Right, save. So now when I rotate, yeah, my Y are a little bit more accurate, which is good. Our Z, I don't want to change too much. I like the bank that we have here. Now I can lift this up. Coming down. Comes down. Swings up. Swoop. Down swing. Come around here. I'm going to make this a little bit more to the left. Then we swoop. As we swoop, this needs to delay. Now I have to ask myself, do I want the character to swing through, which means I delay translations? Or do I have the camera follow more? I think I need to just delay it slightly. So in here, these translations are delayed. So that, there you go. Now he's diving into the bottom left. Oh, bottom right, sorry. We still come around the other side. Just need to smooth out the transition a little. And then I can do my tracking and rotation. So we're coming around here. I like this. I like the how dynamic it feels. We're coming through. We're diving down through here. We're tucking into that bottom left. Coming through. Up and around. Same here. So we're coming around to the middle. I want to delay this. So that as we're pushing here, we're getting more into that right corner. And then it's taking over. That's tricky. No, I think that works. We're kind of isolating the rotations through here to this position. Dive. Then here we got to come through the other end a bit faster. So here, I don't know why I have so many keys. I don't need this key. Here, I want to be on the other side earlier. So this is the thing that's going to be interesting. So here, I want to have a change in the animation. We're restaging this whole section. So when we get to this pose here, I want it to be wider, and we're looking down more on the platform underneath us, because we're going to see drones and surveillance as they're trying to scan for us. And this is more the moment where she's reevaluating her situation, how she's going to tackle the scenario. So we're diving through. And then I think from this transition here, from this moment, I'm going to try a layer. I'm going to save it. Let's save a new version. So I want to see if I can try a layered method here. We'll see how it goes. So when we get to this staging here, around this point, I want to repose the camera. So I want to be wider, and I want to be looking. Oh no, I don't. I want to be higher, looking down. Maybe we pan out wider. It's tricky. I would, because in here we're seeing a lot of depth. It shows the scale of the scene. But I also want to... It's going to take a bit of playing around with. Because we're not really occupying too much of screen right here. For some reason my layout keeps resetting, which is very strange. Let's delete that for a second. Let's delete the motion path. We don't need that right now. The motion trail. Let's save it. Let's try again. My layer mode is set to additive. For some reason, the channels aren't going in. It says they're blue, but it's not isolated my layer. I've never had that before. Where did the environment come from? Hi, Sky. Thank you for joining the chat. I can show you. It was called, I believe it was called Cyber City on CG Trader. It's not free, but it wasn't expensive. They're having a discount as well. I think it was called Cyber City. When you... Alright. Here you go. I'll send you a link in the chat. Yeah, it's currently on 0.5%. It's like 50% off, and it's a huge, huge environment. It's actually much bigger than the photograph show, the screenshot show. I opened it up and it literally is like Doom, where it's just like a massive like cyberpunk like block district. It's huge. It's huge. Okay. For some reason, it didn't like the layer. But that's okay. I can work around that. So I know that I like this position here. So from this point here, I'm just going to repose it. Let's try again. There's going to be people on this rooftop here. But I want to show scale, but I also want to clearly read all the people there. So it's going to be a balance. Because I also want to angle it so that we see her in the top left, but we see them from below at the same time. So I need to go out wider. And maybe flatten off our focal length. Let's turn it into a 50. Just so that we can see a little bit more of her at the front and these wires at the back. I might also... It's tricky. Because I want to see... The wires are a little bit obstructive right now. I want to try and create some separation between them. Still may need to go wider. Make it flatter. Maybe something like this. Not quite how I envisioned it. It does mean that we have more in the focal. I want her to be less in the focal. Like, that's the main purpose of this, is she's going to be in the top left striking her pose, but we're focusing mostly on what's below. So she's going to be... I don't know if I'm going to do depth of field stuff. I'll play around with it. But maybe this is working. What if I go in tighter? I don't want to go too far because it's going to be jarring when I transition. Let's try a 60. Maybe something like this. I'll play around with it. I'm going to transition to this and see how it feels. I'm just going to ease straight in with everything. Because we're pretty much hitting a very choreographed staging at this stage. So we're coming through. And then we're hitting this. That's probably going to look really weird, isn't it? Ooh. Oh, it'd help if I also did the focal length at the same time. Thank you for that, Maya. This. I reckon this to this. We're going to have to do some blending. Why is the focal length not involved in that? That's so strange. I think that works. I just need to blend some of the transition in here to make that blend nicely. I like this. We're holding here. So here... swooping around. There is some weird gimbaling going on in there. I don't know if that's a rotation order thing. I'm just curious. Yeah, didn't fix it. Where is that going on? Aha, it's there. It's the Z's. That's very odd. We're going from like a 300. I wonder if I just add 180 degrees to that. Does that fix it? Kinda. But now we're upside down in one other angle. I think it's this too. All of this also needs to be plus equals 180 degrees. Thank you for the follow. There we go. Fix that. Right. We're coming through. I like this. We're coming down. Oops, on the camera. Not the character. In here, maybe we hold off a little bit more to there. This is swinging around now to this. Diving to the left. Because we're now trying to give us the sensation that we're transitioning to another section. Like, we're taking our eyes off of the character. He's coming down. Then here, I might ease in earlier. Coming down here. I think at this stage I want to ease in so we're lower earlier. So we still see him. We can still track him on screen. Sorry. Diving through. I think the rotation still needs to be eased in more. So we're delaying this. Do we... Maybe I delay it. Coming around. That works a bit better. Okay, we're going to go with that. And then from here, we want to transition to a down pose here. So around here, as we're swinging, and we hit this little swing here, this is directly taken from a spot. Like, the idea of this is directly taken from a Spider-Verse moment, which I really like. Which is, whoever animated it, Tom might even know. There's a really nice moment with Prowler Morales. I'll just say that. I'm trying to not spoil it for anyone. Prowler Morales at the end, when he drops down, he kind of catches himself before he lets go, and I really like the timing of it, and I want to take a little reference to that. So yeah, if anyone knows who the animator was, that'd be really cool to know, because I love that shot. So in here, again, I want to restage this slightly. So the way I'm probably going to approach this is literally blend from one to the next. That's Bianca. Nice. I have to let her know. Thank you. Really cool shot. So I like this staging here. I think that was the, yeah, that was the pose, right? Yeah. Then from here to when we land on the ground here, there needs to be a transition. I'm just going to literally blend everything linearly. And then maybe here, I want to be closer. So on this frame here, I want to be closer in on the action. So here, I want to be slightly closer. There's going to be a the character's going to be attacking one of the police and taken them out. So I know that I want this pose, and then I also want to blend. Now I'm going to blend to that. And when we're here, I want to be lower and tighter in. I know that much. So we want to be tighter in on the action, lower, and slightly more to the left. So that we're following along a little closer. Thanks, though. I appreciate you, you answering the question. So we're coming here. Now, on this transition, I'm just going to literally blend again. I want to hold here for a while, and then as we take the step, she takes a step here. Takes a step. We're coming through. At this stage, we want to be a little higher. But we are losing. We're deliberately losing her. And then she's going to drop down and catch and swing through. I think that could be a fun transition. We'll see her jump here. I might delay this slightly. That's too much. Hop, swing down and round. This transition to here, I want to be more linear. And the thing is, we need to tie the focal length to that too, because the depth is like the depth and the focal length are tied together. Coming down. I also want to blend this transition a little bit into this moment here. So everything from here to here, from this moment to this moment, needs to ease in. And we're going to smooth this. Yeah, that feels better. Come down. I want to hit this much earlier. So we have the swing. Swing, vault, swing, kick. Come through. Jump, kick, swing, goosh. Yeah, that's going to work. And then this transition here needs to slightly ease to the previous part. Ding, 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 ding. Nice. And this transition, I want to be slightly, again, I want this to be slightly more so that he's leading the she's leading the action for the jump. Here, this pose here needs to be slightly favoring slightly more for the previous pose. Ching. And I think that's working. I deliberately am playing with the depth here. I want her to get further away so that when we jump here and swing through, Now this is an interesting one. I don't know. I could really... This could be very dynamic. I could lean more into the 3D thing here. Or I could make it a little bit more to camera. So what I mean by this is there's a moment here, you can see in the screen space, where as we come through, they jump, vault onto this, and then land onto a car. Now, I could keep it more so that we're always looking this way. I think it just reads a bit clearer. It's simpler. We land, come down. I want to make sure that we read the car landing. That's the only thing. So as we vault from here, maybe we go lower earlier. Because we could have him rush past camera and then we don't read him land on the car, which is the issue. I want us to see land on the car. So in here, from this moment, I'm tempted to ease into the car landing here earlier. And then we need to delay the Y. Now we're getting quite front on now. I think here I need to be more around to the left. And then angled to the right. Come down. Tricky. How am I going to make that adjustment? I can maybe split the difference and blend the two. Let's try smoothing it out. Works a bit better. Maybe we delay... Is it the depth? No, it's left to right. The depth. I want to delay this. I'm just playing around at this point. This one I didn't... I had two ideas of how I want to do this. So I'm not quite sure yet. Jump could delay. And then it rushes past here. And then this is also delayed. I don't want to go too wide. It's because of how far away the car is. But obviously it needs to for the momentum, the trajectory of the jump. Because we catch swing here. It needs to be lower here. Yeah, I think this can still work. We can stage this in a way where we still see the car, but make it still feel like dynamic. Something like this. So we see where we came from. I think this looks quite cool. We still see some like verticality to the shot and everything. So now I can transition to this stage. So what I'm really doing is, when I'm thinking about cameras, I'm trying to think about like key compositions that I want to hit, and then I try and make the transitions blend to them as much as I can while still following the action. It is a tricky balance, though, for sure. This definitely needs to be further back at this stage. Why is it so low? That feels weird. There's a rotation in there? It's because the depth going back needs to be earlier. You need to tighten into that quite early. This is quite anime now. We're getting into this moment where we're just pulling back really far. Hit. And then come down. But we're starting to lose some of this composition that I made earlier. So it's just this here. I'm just gonna literally ease in. And then down. Swing. Dash. I reckon I can add a key here, ease it out slightly. Don't know why my focal length is changing so much through all of this. Now it's easing in too tight, but I can smooth this out. Shing. Dish. I do wonder if I want to delay some of this. I also feel like I might want to recompose this. So let's just save it. Come closer, higher. Maybe something like this. Just makes it just feels a little bit more in with the action for me. So we're coming down here. So it's this point here. So our left to right. I can ease in. Our forward and back, we can be closer. We can be lower earlier. And then our rotations can be higher. Makes it feel quite dynamic. It's always it's quite disorienting, which we don't necessarily want. Dun, 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 dun. Come down. I reckon I can blend this. So you come down. This is too high for me. Ugh. Let's see if I can hold that area for longer. And here. Let's see if I can ease this out. Even more? I'm sort of experimenting at this stage. Coming out. Let's go lower. It's weird that we're on the left side. We're on the right side of the body here. So I do need to shift this across. I need to start to ease this out. Into that transition. Yeah, that feels better. And then we'll just try to keep our character in the transition. Yeah. Something like this. Coming down. This is easing in. I think I need to gradually slow down here. We're tightening our down too much. So we can just slightly smooth this off. And then I want to delay this. So it happens slightly later. It's getting there. I still want to slow this out. I just want to hold this moment for a little longer. And then I want to delay this to the donk here. So we hold here for longer. Oosh. Don't know why he's holding in the air there. He's like suspending in the air. There he is. Let's come down, swing down, up. Oops, that's way too high. I'm not sure what's going on with my rotations there. So coming down. What on earth is going on? So we were here. And then we get to this stage here where we land. So all of these rotations, I'm just going to create new poses. There you go. So we're coming down, jump, catch, swing, hold back, continue to hold. There you go. That's better. I might still delay the camera a little here. There's something about the timing of it. Let's just close these so I can get my timeline shrunk. There you go. The slight delay helps a little. And then this transition, here, we need to be further across, I reckon. So to the right, that's back. To the right here, we need to be easing in more. There's a jump here. So all of this needs to ease into that. A little less. There we go. Come through, across. Then we got our ups and downs. So we're coming down, coming up here, kind of holding in the air for a minute. Here, I think we should be lower earlier. Something like this. Don't need the key here. I don't know why I got an extra key there. There we go. So coming through. I am animating. Yep. We're just going through camera and staging right now. It's feeling a bit better. Swoop in. This is quite cool. I didn't intend it to be, but we're pulling back and then diving in together. You see the camera on the right to the left, on the right side of the viewport, coming back and then tucking in together. I quite like that. Zoosh. think we can tilt in earlier though. So we hold out at this angle, come around. Maybe we delayed the tilt. Yeah, something like this, I think. So now we're coming around. The only thing is the rotation Y. I think we need to start transitioning over earlier. So in the Z, this, yeah, we need to be further over to the right earlier. So that way, as we're coming across, we're hanging back. And then we can delay rotation Y. That's good. Coming around. No. This way? Oh, it's so tricky to synchronize this. Coming around. Coming through. Maybe we hold here around this region. And we delay it back. So the Z, going left to right, we ease into this. And then we hold back. Going around, slightly overshoot. Come back in. And slow it down and let it take over. Yeah, something like this. So we're coming around, we're dragging the rotation Y behind. Coming through. Need to track more to the right here. Coming through. Swing to the right. And then swoop. Round. To here. And I want it to be more centered. I want to blend this a little bit more. So that we, yeah, slightly further back here. I don't want to slow down too much. This is where we need to slow down. So in here, I don't think we need to be as low. We do need to tilt higher. We can probably make this pretty dynamic. So as we're coming up here, we could be lower and looking higher. And then come down. I'm going to be slightly further behind here. Coming through. Rotations need to take over. Come around. Down. Down. Slide through. Now in here, as we can slide down, this needs to be much lower, much earlier. Still earlier. Need another key in here so that I can ease into this earlier. There we go. So we're coming down, slide, kick. Now here, we need to be traveling quite constantly. From here to the end. Something like this. So now, just checking my translations. This is depth, right? That's rotation. Translation, yes, depth. So we're coming back. Do I just simplify that curve entirely? Like this? I think I might need to. So, kind of sliding, coming back. Yeah, I think simplifying the camera here is going to help. And then it's just rotations I need to fix now. So sliding down. This is looking up as we cross over. Then we're still in the air. land. I think the translations need to ease in harder here so that we rest a little earlier. Yeah, something like this. So now I just need to do rotation Y. So we're tracking this. I still think that, okay, translations here need to begin to blend a little bit more to the right. And then here too, just need to smooth out those transitions. There we go. So now in here, now I can fix the Y. Still want to go tighter in on the translations here. Here, this still needs to go tighter. Just want to really make that clear that we're now just panning across. Cool. I think we might have something. I don't know how well this pass is going to work. I haven't played it back at all, like in its completion yet, but this will be my first test of it. So we shall see how well this worked. I also just need to shift the camera at the beginning. I noticed that just now. This needs to be slightly more to the right. Yeah. If I just turn on my wireframe, just so I can see, because it's supposed to be the screen, like the frame of the screen. Something around this. It was panning out. So in here, in this transition, I want to add some keys just as we're coming outwards. Just give it a bit more of a orbit as we come around. Let's just turn on motion path for a second so I can get a nice orbit there. Here we go. All right. Now it should work. Let's save that, and then we'll do a Playblast, and we'll see how we get on. Sorry, I've been quiet. I've been concentrating, but hopefully it's just been insightful. Maybe just watching me crack at it. Okay. I'm gonna keep my safety gate on just so I can see where the framing's like the safety where it's landing. I'll turn on the music though, and then we'll give it a play blast. It might take a second to get through the entire minute, but yeah, exciting to see how it turns out. Play blast. CYBERPHONK. Yeah, we'll play this and see how it looks. Some of it's going to be a little jarring, but hopefully you can track the action a little better now. Awesome, thank you. I'll check you out after the stream. Right, are we ready for this, guys? Moment of truth. Did any of what I did today work? Just for clarification, there's a moment here where nothing really happens. It's because I'm going to have action that's happening down here. Like, there's going to be actions with drones where it's like bum 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 bum, and it's like scanning to the rhythm. So that's the reason why there's nothing really happening there. Yeah, I think it's getting there. There's nothing in there that I'm like, oh, that didn't work. Like, I know with some refinement, that stuff's going to work a bit better. But yeah, I guess I can call that stuff out now. Like, there were things when I was watching it that just didn't quite work yet for me. There's a little bit of the timing is slightly through here when he goes boom. Can you hear that? There's a slight like drop of the bass where it comes in and goes boom. And that's when I want it to jump, and it's a little off now. Oh, maybe it works. Bugle. This area, timing wise, the drop here, but I think I can hold here for longer, make this come down later. And then this area, we're holding in here a little too long. Like, we're getting to this stage a little too early. The lo-fi is quite funny, listening to the contrast between that and the, the music I'm playing too. There's a little beat in here which I need to slow this down, this section, because the little jingle you hear there. You hear that, like that moment? That's coming in, like the action is happening too early for that now, because that's supposed to be at the apex where the arms are going to go, there's like a swing that happens. And right now the apex is happening too early here. You see this? This is supposed to be when there. So I need to delay that. And then this transition needs to be a little smoother. It's a little jarring right now. What I might be able to do is come around wider and hold in this area for longer, maybe? It's just a bit jolting. I just need to blend. That's what I need to do, just blend that. And then I think we're in the air for a little too long here for the drop. For the height of the drop. Maybe? We need to come down earlier. And then this slide, we're slowing down too much. So I think where we land here can be a little bit further back from where we were so that we have a bit more speed through here for the slide. And then I think we can hit the ground a little earlier on the rotation Z. And then I think most of this is working. Yeah, I think this will work. Yeah, I mean, the references there is inspiration more than like understanding mechanics. Some of it will be for mechanics reasons, just so I can understand how you get into some of those transitions. Like, there is some... Where is it? There's a swing here, how he vaults and twists his body. And that'll be interesting to see how we're leading the action here on this pose. Like, this is very, like, an important pose in the reference. And seeing how that rotation happens will be where the reference is useful. The poses themselves, I think I'll tweak. This, again, it's mostly rotation stuff. Like, understanding how the axis are transitioning is going to be where the reference is very useful. And then a lot of this will be animated without reference. There'll be a lot of it will be thumbnails. There are some specific moments where I have specific actions that require maybe a little bit more reference. And then there are other areas which, once we've tied down the camera, I think I'll do maybe one short pass extra on the camera for now. And then next stream we'll do thumbnailing. And that's where there are lots of areas where I'm not using reference and I want to thumbnail these. And so I have specific ideas for poses, and I'll be like sketching those out based on the character's design and everything, because if we quickly have a look at the design, you'll notice that there are very specific parts to the body here. So like, you know, we've got these shapes that we can use a bit more. We have these panels, which are more like cloth, which I want to use. Like there's 2 at the front and 2 at the back. We can incorporate some of the shapes of the necklace into the poses as well. But I think I have here, you can see these panels, like the cloth plates that are either sides. So yeah, I'll be experimenting with that a little bit, which should be fun. Got a couple of things in here. Got a quick question, if that's cool. Yeah, of course. Like, feel free to ask questions whenever. How does your workflow differ when working on 2s as opposed to 1s? Or does it not change at all? When you say, oh, okay, it doesn't change for the most part. When I'm working on 2s, when I'm working on 1s, I still animate on 2s. And you'll see that later. But like in most of my shots that I've done, like in other productions, like it'll always be every 2s. Like when I'm doing, for instance, just give me a second, I can find some examples. So all of this, everything was still animated on 2s. So like my workflow doesn't really change all that much. I even when I'm working on ones, I still animate on twos and then spline and refine curves afterwards. I don't think I change all that much. When I'm on twos, the only difference is I don't hit spline and clean it up. Or like I clean it up, but differently, because when you're on twos, you can favor your clarity more in your poses. So sometimes when you're favoring poses for clarity, when you're on twos, because you have less frame rates and you want to make sure that your poses read very distinctly on those transitions, your spacing may not always be like as clean as it may technically look if it was in spline, if that makes sense. You may favor your clarity a little bit more, favor your poses to make it read clearer. And so for that reason, your spacing slightly changes. And so therefore, my mindset when I'm on twos is slightly changing, but the workflow doesn't. The workflow doesn't really change. The rules and the like fundamentals that you might tweak to make it work better for that style are slightly different. But the workflow is the same. Hopefully that helps. I know some people, that's the thing, I don't necessarily, like, you could argue that my workflow working on twos when I'm working on something that's on ones isn't the most economical way of working, and that's true. I would agree with that. But it also, I'm a bit of a control freak when it comes to like trying to make sure I get the spacing I want out of something, and I like having full control over my arcs and my spacing at any given time. I don't like the computer interpolating things where I may start to take something for granted, and it could be a happy accident. And I don't like happy accidents. I want to make sure that if it works, that was me, and if it's a mistake, that was me. And so working on twos kind of alleviates any of that from happening, where the computer may have just happily done something correctly, or may have accidentally done something I didn't want it to. So I always work on twos, really, for the most part. Like, even when I'm on, whether it's subtle, whether it's broad, if it's like very subtle, very, very subtle mechanics where it's just acting and it's incredibly contained, I'll probably work on fours. Unless there was like some more intricate movement that happens at some point where they, like, I don't know, they shake their head or something, then I'll go back on twos. But like mostly acting stuff I would do on fours if it's subtle.